So who are you?
My name is Johnny Fleming. I'm an associate professor of math here at the university. Been here, this is my 10th year.
10 years. Wow.
Yeah.
So as a kid, did you say, as a little kid, I'm like, I want to teach math at a university? Or what was the dream as a kid?
Absolutely not. So the first childhood dream was to be a pilot. That was my kid, Desert Storm was happening when I was, 10, 11, 12, a little younger than that too. And I was just really into aviation and the military. And so that's what I wanted to do. And then I realized that I had some vision issues, which immediately knocked me out of that. And so plans changed, right? And then from there, I was kind of in one of those places like we all are sometimes. I don't know what I want to do. I'm just going to go through school and see what happens. As I got into high school, I thought maybe I've always liked computers. I've always been into computers. I built my first one when I was in high school and kind of got into that and got into some computer gaming and stuff. And I thought maybe I'd like to develop, be a software developer, maybe develop games, develop software, that kind of thing. And that's where I started into college. My first major was computer science. So that's how that all started. And then I got here and realized that, no offense, Mr. Francis, but I hated it. I really didn't like that at all. And at the same time, I found that I really liked what my girlfriend at the time was doing, which was education. We would have conversations about what she was doing in her classes, and I really kind of got into that and took an ed class, changed my major, and the rest is history. So I trained to be a middle school teacher. I did that for a couple of years. The 2008 recession hit. I lost my job. I worked at the hospital locally for a little while. I was was in the billing department, worked with patients, and that allowed me to use my skills in a little different way, because I always saw that as a servant position. I was helping folks try to understand why they were being charged $5 million for their treatment or whatever, and then come up with a plan so that they could take care of that and take care of their health. And then a lot of that was insurance, navigating insurance and that sort of thing. And I did that for a couple of years until I got a phone call from one of my former professors who said, and I quote, "Would you like to teach?" And I said, "Absolutely. Where do I sign?" And I wasn't even sure what I was getting myself into, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So she said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm on vacation." She said, when do you get back?" And I said, "Monday." And she said, "Come see me." So when I walked in the door, and this is Dr. Shirley Nelson, by the way, for those of you who know some of the history of the university. Shirley and Dean, at the time, Dean Hess, were sitting in there, and I was walking into an interview. Had no idea. I'd just gotten off work. And I walked into an interview and was basically sort of hired on the spot because they needed somebody. So classes started in like 2 weeks, and that was my first year. So it's been a journey. It's been great. I've loved 99% of the minutes of it, and I can't wait to keep doing it.
Wow. What a cool way to kind of get into the higher ed teaching. But a dream job. Is there a dream job beyond UPike, or is UPike the dream?
As long as I get to continue working with students, investing in young people, I would love to continue to do it here. Appalachia's my home, Pikeville's my home. But as long as I get to keep doing that, I think that's my dream. My dream is just to keep doing what I'm doing in some capacity, whether that's teaching math or working with faculty and professional development, and working with integrating new technologies into classrooms and that sort of thing, because I'm passionate about that too. Then I'll be happy.
So you already talked about a little bit about your life narrative. Was there anything else in life that happened to really kind of spur you to know for sure that, like, I am a teacher, I'm an educator?
That's a good question. The answer is really complicated. I'm not sure that there was any one thing. I think it was definitely a big group of factors that kind of all happened at the same time. I talked a little bit about that before. with my girlfriend, who later became my wife. But I think it was just, I knew I wanted to help people. I really enjoyed mathematics, but then I also really enjoyed kind of getting into the weeds and helping other people understand mathematics, and so that's kind of what led me down that path. But no, I can't say there's really one thing. I'm not sure any of us can.
So when we think about a sense of call or purpose or mission, we write these big fancy mission statements and people memorize them. But think about your own life. If we put it into a sentence, what are you called to do, or what's your mission?
Wow, that's a really deep question. I never really thought about my career in terms of calling and mission, but my life in general, I feel like as long as I find some way to contribute to sort of the greater good, and I know that sounds really kind of vague, but I feel like that's my purpose. I've always been one that wanted to help others. I got in trouble in elementary school for helping my friend who, at the time, I didn't realize, but was very hard of seeing. He couldn't see very well, and I would sneak and read the board to him, and I got in trouble for that because the teacher thought I was cheating. And it's been little things like that, but I've always been one that would jump in and try to help others. And so, obviously, I think a service-oriented life is one that I've been trying to lead.
So this might be a kind of ridiculous question then, but your current position, do you feel like it aligns with that call that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I see it every day. Obviously in the classroom, but then also outside the classroom. Students come to me and, I obviously wouldn't call the student out, but I had a student in here earlier in my office who was just having a real crisis. And so I was able to kind of talk them through that. Little did they know I had been in their shoes. It was the very same problem I had faced as an undergrad here. And so I was able to say, hey, look, you're going to get through this. So yeah, absolutely.
Obviously now, because you live with students, teach them, have been all kinds of support over the years to students and people, you've made an impact. But who's made an impact on you to kind of help you understand what your life's all about?
That's a good question. So many people. So I think it started at a young age with my parents. My dad was a huge influence on my life. I lost my dad when I was 18, which was, difficult, but just one more thing that, made me who I am, I guess. And then my mother, my mother's so supportive of me and my dreams and my goals. I'm working on a PhD right now, and so Mom has a high school diploma. She doesn't really understand what it means to work on a PhD, but at the same time, she's always there. So definitely them. As far as here goes, obviously I had some teachers along the way. I could go into lots of detail about that. The one math teacher that I really hated, but looking back on the fact, kind of shaped the way that I approach teaching math, because I wanted to do it all the opposite of the way they did it. But still, that was, that sort of contributed to who I am and what I do, and so I'm thankful for that. And then when I got here, it was, some of the math faculty that are still here. I mentioned earlier, Mr. Howard Francis. I think he was a great influence as a teacher, just somebody who really cares, about his students. And so he was a big influence. And then the Nelsons, John and Shirley, I owe them so much. Just both wonderful people who kind of taught me that teaching is about more than just writing things on the board and trying to get people to learn them. It's about investing in other people. So
if someone was watching this video today and they said, man, you're really you're living my life, you're living the dream, I want to do this, what did you do to position yourself for this career now?
Another good question. And then, obviously I've talked about my story some, so I'll go back and reference that a little bit. When I was an undergrad here, I took every opportunity that I could find. I volunteered for everything I could volunteer for. I put myself out there because I learned a long time ago that if you want opportunities, you have to make them. Nobody's going to hand you anything. And so I feel like that really kind of gave me this opportunity sort of down the road. I'd had a couple conversations with Shirley in particular about the fact that maybe someday I wanted to come back and teach college. And so I feel like kind of planting that seed, I didn't even know I was doing it, is what kind of gave her the inclination to call me that day. So, some people think of that maybe as serendipity, some people think of it as fate, some people call it God. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but I feel like that's sort of what put me in the position that I'm in right now. Obviously, it helped that I was able to follow through and finish my education, and so I've worked really hard. I continue to work hard at that, But I think it's more about people and relationships than anything.
That then begs a question about relationships, and as you talk with students, or they talk with you, or even maybe alum, who come back and say, "It seems like everyone else around me has such a clear vision of what they're supposed to do with their lives, but I have no idea." What would you say to that student or alum who just really has no idea?
Yeah, good question. Almost the same as my last answer. Put yourself out there. Try new things. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try something and then absolutely despise it and move on to something else. You can't know what you want or what you will love until you try. So that would be my kind of surface level advice to anybody that asks that question.
Well, you surely are getting out there and trying, going after your PhD, living with students, making a big impact here. We really appreciate what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Thanks.